Okay, still Garnet, and I'm back for what we'll call number 2. Here you see I have the nasal light, the brain food that we use. We'll talk about that in a moment. In the earliest stages of trying to understand how the brain food could be incorporated, we thought, is it possible to actually integrate it into the light sound, brain gym, brain skills? And the engineering demands were way too high, way too complicated. And it also meant that the only time you could use the brain food is when you had the NeuroLight, the big device, light and sound, all turned on and connected. So that seemed to be kind of laborious. And also the fact that the engineering efforts and costs were way out of our price range. So the decision was, let's go with a third-party device, because there are a number of them that have been created. These units have been around for a long while, primarily as intranasal, first coming out of basically Eastern Europe and Russia, and then taken up by the Chinese, and Chinese companies have for decades have been using and modifying and manufacturing these things. I personally had an older Chinese nasal device, single nostril. Oh, I don't know, I got it 15 years ago, and it finally died about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago when I came over here to Thailand. Well, actually some years ago. Anyway, so here was the decision, and we tested a number of different models. At first it was the idea of trying to go with the newer concept of transcranial. The problem with that, and even there were initial designs to try to manufacture or design one, complicated, expensive, and cumbersome. So the decision was going with the transcranial ended up being not practical. Adds way too much cost to the NeuroLight. You can't use it during a NeuroLight session. If you want to move it around or carry it around, or it ends up being kind of a chunk. So the decision was, let's go with the nasal light. And yeah, I think most of you have seen what this is like. Right? So this is a unit manufactured in China that we purchase in bulk and provide for purchase within our systems. There are other Chinese devices, and even now a few devices from non-Chinese sources. Good, bad, and the ugly. It's kind of, you get what you pay for, but of course if you buy from Western manufacturers, the costs are going to be higher because of materials and labor and so on. So we ended up with this one. It's a good one. All right, so why on a practical level? Well, one, you can use it during a session, or you can use it outside of a session. The whole principle of brain food is that in many cases you need it on a regular and ongoing basis, especially if your neuroplastic capacity is low. So if it's low, frankly, using it every day, and I think anybody over 40 should have one, frankly, it falls into the range of what I would call good nutrition, because the brain's favorite food happens to be light. Actually, the whole body's favorite food is light, but we can't go too far into that discussion right now. So the triune design of the NeuroLight being brain skills, that's the self-regulatory, self-organizing, but it doesn't work at optimum levels if there is insufficient communication and connectivity, that's the brain gym, and if there are low levels of energy supply. So if the energy supply gets low, then the organism, the body, moves into what's called criticality. The criticality, right? The critical aspects are used and supplied first before the others. So not everybody gets to eat at the table, if you know what I mean. So here we have the nasal light as the form of brain food. And the idea is using it on a regular basis is going to optimize all of the benefits. It's easy, it's light, it's portable. You can stick it in your backpack or your purse or your suitcase. I happen to keep it by my bedside because I go to sleep with it most every night, and use it during the day as well. My past experiences previous to the NeuroLight easily confirm this. The research is overwhelmingly supportive and positive, both at a clinical level, generally empirical, and also in very well controlled studies. Arguably most of them have been done in Asia and Eastern Europe, but the West is finally waking up. Okay, so that's a quick part 2 on the practical decision to go with a third-party device. The nasal light is what we call it, and what you'd find is that there are other manufacturers. To me, this is basically as good as you're going to get. The price range is very fair. You can look around on the internet and see maybe the same manufacturer private labeling up to other companies, whether you can buy by ones or tens or hundreds, all those things. We try to make it fair and easy. Our margin in this is practically nothing. It's mostly supplied by us as a service. Okay, so let's call this part 2 of the concept of the nasal light.